Ty Segall, hello, hi, album review, let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this latest album from California garage rock god Ty Segall. He is a man that I got into in my college years, and just listening to some of his early few albums made me swarm to the California sort of garage rock revival. If it wasn't for Ty's music, I wouldn't have gotten into artists like the OCs, the early days of Michael Cronin, and God, I could list them all for half an hour. And let me tell you, geez, if you are new to his music and ready to dive in and looking for a starting point, I have some bad news for you. You have some homework to do. The man's catalog is overwhelming. Not only that, but the man is a damn chameleon, and ever since his early days, he's been pushing himself constantly. We have the blast of electric blues that was his first self-titled album, the gritty and grimy Lemons, his first scuzzed out masterpiece and one of my all-time favorites, Melted, the hazy and stripped down Goodbye Bread, his incredibly consistent Twins album, and his awesome take on a sort of stripped down classic rock sound in Sleeper. These are all albums that if you're into garage rock, garage psych, psychedelic rock, they're easily mandatory listens. It's more along the times of the 2010s that me and Ty started to get a little bit more, I don't know, hot and cold. I mean, people I know absolutely obsessed over Manipulator. I've always been very indifferent towards it. Yes, it has some awesome singles, but his very gaudy, very glitzy produced, sort of glam rock inspired album here, I don't know, it's very okay. There's a lot of rough material on here, and it's so damn long. It wasn't until he won me back with his Frank Zappa inspired emotional Mugger album that really got me back on his track. But shortly after, he released his second self-titled album, and that was my thoughts on it. It's easily one of his most underwhelming albums. But just when I feared that Ty was starting to take things maybe a little safer, he released his most long and ambitious project yet with Freedom's Goblin. This thing is a masterpiece and still one of my favorite albums of the last few years. The last few years with Ty have been just as equally all over the place. I thought his first Taste album had some really cool singles on it. Radio was awesome, but also had a lot of safe moments as well. And last year he brought out his Harmonizer album, which at the time I thought was really cool, very synth heavy, but it lessened on me pretty quickly, and I realized I just wasn't as into it as I hoped I'd be. And that's just his solo recordings. The guy has different side projects like Fuzz and Ty Segall Band and so many more. He's dropped so many great collabs with the likes of White Fence, Michael Cronin, live albums as well. Like I said, his discography is intimidating to say the very least, which leads me to this new album, Hello Hi. This album starts off with Good Morning, and right off the bat, it's very clear that this time around, Ty is going the folky route. It's not bad, actually. It's a pretty good start. It's a very pleasant, very rainy day, very stripped down tune from Ty. I mean, vocally, this upper registry that he goes into sometimes, it's not my favorite of his. But for what it's worth, it actually works very nicely up against the very quiet, very hushed atmosphere of this track. I mean, truthfully, for a whole album, I haven't seen him go down the folk route in quite a while, so it's a nice surprise. It ends up being really sweet. I could say a lot of the same things about Cement. This track is actually pretty masterful. It brings you back to the days of, like, Sleeper. It's just a stripped down, but it has this mystic edge to it. I love the guitar solo as well. It's overall really nice, and a few tracks later we get the title track here, Hello Hi. This is a left turn for the album, but don't get used to it. I mean, this was the first single released from the album, and hearing that big, crunchy, bulky garage rock riff made me think that Ty was about to put out another masterpiece. But I really did need a little something to wake me up right about now, and that's exactly what this does. It's got that big, crunchy riff. It's got the grimy production. This is a garage anthem. You don't really hear too much else like this on the album, though, which is maybe a little bit of a letdown, but I can't be too harsh on it because between the ridiculous playing and the weirdo vocals, this is actually really well done. And then we have Blue, and this track takes things in a much more dramatic direction. I love how fragile Ty sounds here. It's actually pretty powerful stuff. I mean, his vocals specifically, they just sound so shaky, so ready to burst at any moment. And the rainy day, very dreary vibes of this track are just done really tastefully. Now, you can argue that this album is a little one-dimensional, and you know what? It is. Especially for someone like Ty, who has quite often thrown us numerous different sounds on a single album. But I don't actually hate that. I think it's actually a nice listen. It's a double-edged sword, though, because there is, to an extent, not a lot new, wild, or exciting going on this album. Take, for example, Over. We get a lot of tracks on here that just breeze right by, go in one ear, right out the other. And yes, it's pleasant, but good luck remembering it. It also just seems very average as far as Stripped Down Ty goes. This could have easily just been an extra track on one of his last few projects. And let me tell you, when we get some snoozers here, there are some pretty rough ones. Like Don't Lie, as a single, I heard this and I wanted to head for the hills. This is my least favorite track here, and this is just not a sound I ever want to hear from Ty. It is so painful to listen to. It's so faceless once again, and it just doesn't have anything to back it up. This sounds like if a slight breeze picked up, it would blow away. It just bugs me because I know Ty is so much better than this. It's just so average. It sounds like, honestly, Ty's getting a little desperate. And Saturday Part 1 is not much better. I mean, there is some drama to this track, but I could really do without Ty's vocals here. They sound like they're about ready to pass out. What an incomplete thought of a track. It's boring. I think the word to really sum up this album is just, it's safe. It's certainly not bad, but I personally just know Ty can do so much better. He does, however, have some real late album knockouts that just remind you who the hell you're dealing with here. Take, for example, Looking at You. This is all around one of the best tracks here. It's got some meat to it. It just, it's got some structure to it. I love the use of electric guitar here as well. This almost comes off like a really great cover of one of Ty's favorite early 70s folk rock jams. That's not a bad thing either. It would be a great cover. And when this thing picks up and it's not just Ty's an acoustic guitar, honestly, it's a welcome shift. And personally, I think Ty saves the best tracks for last. Take, for example, Saturday Part 2. This is track of the album. This is ridiculous. Once again, I'm brought back to the really great albums like Goodbye Bread and Sleeper. It ends up being a really hypnotizing track. Ty's vocals here just come off so grisly, and it ends up becoming really hypnotic. That's what makes Ty's albums hard to pinpoint at times, though. You can get a relatively safe release like this album, but then he'll come out with a track like this, and instantly I'm back, ready to worship the guy again. I think it's one of the best tracks Ty's put out in the last few years. And Distraction as a finale just seems right. It just sounds like where this album should be and should have been. It's a little bit more breezy, a little bit more carefree. It's not so rainy day and bluesy, which is usually something I actually enjoy in Ty's music. But I will say this, one of the biggest shocks about this album is some of the lengthier, beefier tracks here that, push the 5-minute mark are some of Ty's best moments here. I wish he took that approach because when he does, honestly, a lot of the material here is really good still. This ends up being a really cute, sweet sentiment from Ty as a finale and a really great finale. This album, it's fine. It's a very fine album from Ty Segall. If you're a fan of his and you've listened to everything that he's ever done, like me, honestly, you're going to want to hear this still. I mean, is it consistent? No. Is it groundbreaking? No. Is it his big next artistic leap? No, but it is a set of folk tunes from him, which we haven't heard from him in a while, and there are some real left hooks and sharp turns here that are just really wowing and just remind you of what he could do with so little. I think it's safe, but very solid, and that's where I'm at right now. Feeling a late 7 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.